Hello, Pulp Hounds. So, before we get into what I've been reading these chilly months, let's have a word from today's sponsor.
You big idiot! Oh, hello, you all right? Look what you've done to my car!
Nobody's fault, old man.
And I was taking Mother to Clacton.
Ah, yes, I'm off to the Isle of Skye myself.
Look at it!
Oh, no problem. General accident will see to that.
Who?
Even the most careful driver can run into a spot of bother. The General Accident Comprehensive Policy is the only one which automatically gives you a Godfrey Davis car, absolutely free. The car is yours for up to a fortnight, while your own is off the road.
Hello, darling. Just got to make a quick phone call. May I introduce Mr. He's going to Clacton. Or rather, he isn't.
So, I often read for videos. If there's something I want to talk about in a video, I've got to read the book. And that dictates a lot of my, like, how I choose my next book that I'm going to read. But not being too good and not, like, having a little break from YouTube throughout kind of, like, October. Yeah. I've been going through my to-be read pile, which I realise I haven't really paid that much attention to, because I'm thinking about, oh, that would be a cool video to do, so I need to read that series or what have you, read that author. So my my October reads, well, it's kind of September and October. It's just stuff off my to be read pile, and I thought I'd share some of the stuff with you because there's some cool and interesting stuff in there. First off, I want to talk about a book that I'm only halfway through, which is a bit weird. How can you review a book that you're only halfway through? But I know how good it's going to be. The first half has been awesome. And it's Beyond the Veil from Flame Tree Press. Now, it's recently come out. It's an awesome anthology. We've already had volume 1 with After Sundown, and I'm about halfway through Beyond the Veil, and it's a really quality collection of horror stories. It does remind me a lot of kind of like the old Pan book of horror, because you there's no, in a good way, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's you just don't know what's going to come and assault your senses next. It's so much fun. Some of the names inside, some of the contributors: Christopher Golden, Matthew Holness, better known as Garth Marenghi, Toby Litt, Jeremy Dyson, Steve Gallagher. It just looks, so far I'm about halfway through, and apart from one which I didn't like for personal reasons, it deals with a medical condition that my family is dealing with, and it was a little bit too close to home. But horror needs to be close to home. Horror needs to be grounded in some kind of reality, otherwise it's just an absolute fantasy and you can't really relate to it. It's edited, they're both edited by Mark Morris, who is he's a wonderful chap, and he knows horror. His attention to detail with horror is what makes his own writing and his anthologies absolutely banging. He needs character logic and a story to play out in a natural way that it really would. If something's too, not outrageous, but if something's not a logical behaviour for somebody to exhibit in that situation, then that kind of puts him off. We've talked about it before. He's such a dude. And his attention to detail and his absolute passion for top-notch horror shows in these anthologies coming from Flame Tree Press. They're absolutely brilliant. So it's available in a lovely hardback if you fancy collecting the hardbacks. I do. It's also available in paperback, and it's available as an ebook on Amazon. And I urge you to check it out. Totally. They're so entertaining, and they're a shining example of what modern horror can be in a genre that's become a little bit diluted with romantic vampires or a lot of self-published things. A lot of self-published things are great. There's some amazing self-published things, but there's some self-published things that you get sometimes that you think, yeah, this is why a big publisher didn't grab it. But this, so far, is an absolute belter. And I think I can safely say that the second half is going to be belting as well. I just wanted to put it in this video because I wanted to talk about it while it was fairly fresh out. And I don't think I'm going to be doing another kind of either reads or pickups video for a little bit. I've got some author and series videos in the works, and so it wouldn't really fit in. I had a DNF, did not finish. That's one of the things when you read in for a video, I have to be able to talk about the whole book. So even if it's a bit of a slog and I'm a bit like, then I have to keep going. When it's just off my to be read pile, I'm a bit like, oh, come on. Then there's other things on my to be read pile that are kind of sparkly and gorgeous going, hey, look at me, read me instead. I promise amazing horrors and mysteries. It's a prime example of horror marketing 101. It's not, welcome to marketing 101, kid. It's not a horror book, even though it looks like something kind of horror-y. And it does actually say fiction horror on the back. It's one of those, is it late 70s? It was written in 78. It's a thriller with some murder and vaguely occult elements in. And when October's creeping in and the nights are drawing in and I'm sat with the fire on and Victor next to me, I want a spooky book, and it wasn't that. I'm going to keep it. I'm probably going to try again with it at some point. Because I might have just not been in the right mood for it. And approaching it as a thriller, you're going with a different mindset from when you want actual horror. So no, I didn't finish it. One I did finish is one that's been on my to be read pile for quite a while. Rest in Agony by Paul Fairman. A groovy devil on the front, like a papier-mâché Satan. He's on the back as well. They obviously wanted to get the most out of their groovy Satan. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to read this, I can't find the references, but when I always read about old horror paperbacks on blogs and stuff like that, and a bunch of people had said this is kind of key in the development of modern horror fiction. It's quite an important milestone, which I didn't really. Yeah, it didn't. It read like a young adult novel. It's all about teens and people in their early 20s that are thrown into a sinister and supernatural mystery. It's very much a story of redemption with Uncle Amby. Kind of, it's quite apparent from the start that there's something weird going on with him. It's not trashy, it's quite classy. It covers people dealing with the passing of a family member quite intelligently and tactfully. And it's from 1960? So this version's 1967, but it was originally published in 1963. And it was all right because it's kind of large print. It's one of those easy eye books, which I quite like as I'm getting older. I love an easy eye paperback because it's like big print. I don't need my reading glasses on the bus. I can just plough through it. It just felt like a young adult book. It didn't have a lot punchy in it. It kept me interest all the way through, but it's not one that I'm gonna go back to. It does deal with some, without too many spoilers, try not to do spoilers. It does deal with a bit of devil worship. Obviously, there's the devil there. But not in an interesting way for me. Like there's movies and stuff that deal with devil worship that I really like, that don't have violence and gore in them. Like The Devil Rides Out. I think that's wonderful. And you can do that kind of devil worship thing. It just didn't seem to have that punch for me. But it is an American novel, and maybe that's just my mindset at the minute. I find something more readable and exciting in like kind of satanic cults in the UK, like in suburbia and stuff. That's really my bag. So I read it and enjoyed it, but it's not one that I'd be sitting to my mates going, you've got to read Rest in Agony because it's awesome. One that I did think was awesome, that I didn't know about its existence until quite a few months ago, is Gaslic Nightmares 2, edited by Hugh Lamb. Now, I didn't know there was a Gaslic Nightmares 2. I've got Gaslic Nightmares, which is a fabulous anthology of Victorian Edwardian ghost and horror stories. And Hugh Lamb was a staggering anthologist. He would find things that are just lost and forgotten. And when I flick through a Hugh Lamb anthology, I just think about his library. What lost collections of stories has he got on his or did have on his shelves? So yeah, Gaslic Nightmares 2. There's a couple of familiar names in it. I love the tagline on the back. Feel the fingers of death caress your eyes. Brilliant. Who've we got in Gaslic Nightmares 2? William Hope Hodgson, Tropical Horror. I am quite a fan of William Hope Hodgson, and I've not read that one, and it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I suggest that you track it down. If you don't want to buy this book, track it down online, or I'm sure there's a LibriVox. I've been into LibriVox. The reason I've been off is I've had a few health things, and one of the things it's affected is my vision. So I've not been able to read quite as much as I wanted, but I have still been able to read in between bouts of not being well. But while I've not been well, I've been on LibriVox. Nothing in my videos are paid. Like I always say, I've got a couple hundred subscribers, and you're all wonderful, but nobody's going to pay me to, subsidise a product. But LibriVox is cool. It's people reading. It's free audiobooks for stuff that's out of copyright. So there's a lot of Victorian and Edwardian horror and pulp stuff. I've just recently listened to a load of the Fu Manchu novels. They've not aged well. It's a character I've never really paid close attention to, and I had to listen to a couple of the novels, and I was a bit like... There's a lot of races and cultures Sax Roma really didn't like. But I am going to listen to Brood of the Witch Queen, which I've got and I haven't read. So anyway, in Gaslic Nightmares 2, we've got William Hope Hodgson, Lafcadio Hearn, Robert Chambers. There's a Robert Chambers story that I hadn't read in this. And The King in Yellow is one of my all-time favourite books. It's romantic and haunting and disturbing and feels like an opium-fuelled fever dream. It's just wonderful. There was Bernard Capes in Volume 1. There's a few Bernard Capes stories in this. Edward Lucas White. Mrs. Molesworth. That one was alright, the Mrs. Molesworth one. But it's... what Hugh Lamb did, especially in this one, and a little bit in Gaslit Nightmares, you get a little biography before the story starts of the author and other books that they published, other kind of details of their collections of stories and stuff. So it's a brilliant collection of not too dry and decent quality Victorian and Edwardian horror stories. But it also provides you with Hugh Lamb's research as well. So if there's something you've read that you think, that's a belter, really enjoyed that, then you can go off and find more of the things that this person wrote. Which I love in an anthology, because sometimes you'll read something by a name you don't know and you're like, I need to find more of their stuff, and it's quite difficult sometimes, especially if it's older stories. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed Gaslit Nightmares 2. It is a bit of a chonker, but I had a lovely time on evenings, just sat with the fire on and Victor next to me, just sat reading old, dusty, forgotten horror. It's the perfect time of year for it. So after I finished that one, I grabbed another Hugh Lamb that's been languishing on my to-be-read pile. I call it a to-be-read pile. Come on, we all know. We've all got to-be-read piles and bookcases and stacks and boxes and cupboards of things that we bought that we need to read. It's Forgotten Tales of Terror. This was another absolute belter from Hugh. It feels more like 20s and 30s kind of pulpy stuff, more than Victorian type stuff, although it's a lot of the same authors. Lafcadio Hearn, Bernard Capes, E.F. Benson, Robert Chambers, William Hope Hodgson. And with anything that's a bit older, I mean, this book came out in 1978. So at the time, these things were lost and forgotten. A lot of the stuff in here has been reprinted since. But it's still like a nicely curated anthology. And I think that's the right word for Hugh Lamb's anthologies. They feel curated. They don't feel collected or just put together. It's like a little curated experience that Hugh Lamb wanted to share with you because he loved this era of fiction. What was a good one? The Cadaver of Bishop Lewis by Frederick Coles. Not a name I know. That was lovely. The Haunted Bungalow by Charles Duff. Again, another one I don't know. Smeeth by Barry Payne. That was a pretty good one. I liked that one. And I decided that if I ever become a wrestler, my dad's called Barry, so I think Barry Payne would have to be my wrestling name. Making his way to the ring, Barry Payne. Just such a cool wrestler name. Anyway, I digress. This is one of those weird books that's that you can drop on cheap, or you look on a sorted book buying website sometimes and it's like 40 quid. So wait and get it cheap. And like I said, it's not stuff that is now totally forgotten. In 1978, I'm sure 100% it was stuff that hadn't been reprinted and was very hard to find. But some of it's been reprinted since, just so you know. And lastly, I stayed with the anthologies. I've had this one for quite a while, and it's been one that I have been meaning to get round to reading. And do you ever get that, where books that you'll buy a book or get a book that you like, that looks so good, and then it goes on your to be read pile, and then it just gets lost a little bit in the milieu of wonder and treasures that you want to feast your eyes on. And it's Beneath the Ground, edited by Joel Lane. I never met Joel Lane. I'd like to have met him. He passed away, I think it was 2013. I think it was. No, it must have been after that. But when he passed away, I know a lot of my friends that knew him were utterly shocked and tremendously saddened by his death. And I really felt like he was admired and respected as a writer and an editor of anthologies. And this anthology, it's all quality. Now, it's a themed anthology, so it's about subterranean stuff, anything that's underground, and that's a thing of mine. I love and hate underground stuff. Is it ASMR? You know, when you watch like people cutting soap or like a machine working and it's inadvertently relaxing and people watch it on YouTube. That's the thing. Well, I watch potholing videos and people doing underground exploration, amateurs just on YouTube, because it's like the antithesis of ASMR for me. It just makes me tense. But I'm safely tense from the comfort of my sofa watching these people squeeze themselves through tiny holes underground. And I know they must know there's risk. There's some really shocking and disturbing documentaries about potholers and cave divers that got stuck and couldn't be rescued. But I guess if you're going to do that, you're aware of the risks. Cave diving's even worse than potholing for me, because you do all the potholing and then you go under some water and it's not getting stuck. Genuinely, this is 100% genuine. It's not the getting stuck that perturbs me. It's monsters, mate. You're going like through impassable holes deep underground, and then you're getting in some water that hasn't been explored or touched for millennia. Monsters. If anywhere is going to contain monsters on this planet, it's there. So underground things make me a little bit tense. And this anthology came out in 2002. And it's got some belting names in it. Ramsey Campbell, David Sutton, Tim Lebbon, Paul Finch, Nick Royal, Simon Bestwick. And it's really lovely. just because maybe it's just me with my irrational fear of things underground, but every story seems to capture that cyclopean earthiness of things there that we shouldn't be faffing with. If we just leave well enough alone, they'll leave us surface dwellers alone. And it's just absolutely wonderful. So it was published by, it's a small press one, Alchemy Press. And I haven't checked out how much it is second hand. I wouldn't have thought it's going to cost you an absolute fortune. It was a tenner when it came out in 2003, and absolutely well worth it. So that's what I've been reading these chilly months. Do check out Mark Morris's anthologies. Like I said, I'm not paid. I just genuinely think it's a top quality product, and a lot of modern horror, I think, gets a little bit diluted by current trends and things that are popular in popular culture, and that is just a kind of, it feels very modern and fresh, but it's just a good old school horror anthology worth checking out. So that's it. Thank you for joining me, guys. If you fancy joining me for a vinyl video, I'll be working through all my Halloweeny ones, so there'll be some spooky sounds and sinister nonsense going on in my vinyl videos. And next Wednesday, will be another book collecting video. And I'll see you lovely lot in the next video.